So a very warm welcome to everybody and a massive thank you to David, one of our absolute pillars of the platform team, who, gosh, I think you've probably been with us right since the beginning. So really appreciate your time and offering to take the community through, your career, your path, and yeah, really interested to hear what your journey, and thanks Jack, I've just seen your note. So great, here we go, over to you, David.
Okay, so firstly, thanks very much to everybody taking some of your time out to listen to me. This is my little presentation I've called Careering Ahead, which is just my perspective on getting and succeeding in a job in technology. So I thought I'd start off with just a little bit about who am I. So my name is David Calder. I've worked in IT for 21 years, but I've actually only worked for 2 different organisations over that time. I started off, well, actually, it's university. I did environmental biology, and so I'm not from an educated computer background. But in 2001, I started on a graduate programme at Abbey National, which was a building society, is now Santander, the bank. And I started as in application support. I was looking after first looking after their middleware. There was a new middleware implementation that was gluing various bits of the bank technology together, so it could interface with new front ends, such as e-banking front end, and over time I became worked with the web front end as well. So the e-banking solution helped migrate that onto something called WebSphere, which is a Java environment, and that was great. And then in 2005 I actually went looking for some interview practice, and the first something came up. It was with Camelot, who run the National Lottery, and it was for a job in application support. And I thought, well, I'll do that. I'll go along. I'll get some experience in interviews, because I haven't had much experience in that. And we basically got on. The team that I was interviewing with, we got on really well straight away, and started a role at Camelot that I'm well, not a role, but a job at Camelot that I'm still in now. So I started off as in just the application support team. We were looking after the National Lottery website, which had been up for just only a few years by then. And over time, I became application support team lead. And a great thing about Camelot is people love to stay there, so there wasn't much opportunity to progress up the chain. So an opportunity did become available as a service delivery manager, looking after a completely different team, which is a complete pivot for me, a completely different type of role, which I did for several years. I think I learned a lot there from the fact that it wasn't ideally suited to me. And so when a role as a service manager came up, I jumped at that chance, which is more suited to me. It was like the application support role. My role is to help people out and get things sorted for them, I would say. So I was a relationship manager, and also service manager, reporting on the quality of business. But it's basically where people need help, I make sure that they get it. So it's an interesting career path. So I just this presentation is basically just one perspective in a sea of many. So so what I want to say in this, I want to talk about the different opportunities that are available to you if you're somebody who's just started off in looking for a new career. Maybe you've been code plan, you've been learning how to develop, but I just wanted to get across that there's lots of different opportunities in the technology world available to people, not just development. I want to give you a little overview on doing a good CV and an interview, and then about how to progress in a career once you've made it through those stages. So I say first thing first is there's lots of different opportunities available out there, and and you might not realize that. So I went looking for a graduate program when I came out of university, and I'd say I didn't even register me that the National Lottery existed as an actual organization when when I went looking for it. I was just I went to spoke to an agent, and he put me in touch with them. So just bearing that in mind when you go out looking for it, there's lots of different companies out there that have a technology department, and there could be FTSE 100 companies, could be service providers, young startups. I'm sure great fun to work with, also agencies. You might want to go freelance or even work in government. So if you're a coder, there's lots of different places where you might use those skills. You might be developing mobile apps and web apps as you might exist, but also there's the back end applications. Like I say, there's you might look at e-banking. They've got lots. They'll have a full stack behind that, with many interfaces to lots of different back-end applications. Oh, you might be doing full stack as well. It's certainly quite a thing that's required of many different companies these days. And there's also you can use your coding in serverless environments. Coding's also not just for creating applications. There's the skills that you learn as a coder. You might there's a whole, with the introduction of serverless cloud environments, infrastructure as code is a very important thing. It's and an absolute revolution in providing environments for both development and production. It used to be, a lot of infrastructure was built manually. Now it's done from code and can be version controlled and improved upon, just like any other code. And it's great coding skills lead to great infrastructure. There's also observability. There's that's monitoring at its most basic form. There's lots of it's more than that. It's about making your running applications, having that full visibility of how they're performing, and how to manage them. And that could be using your skills in all kinds of different ways, building APIs to collect information, or creating dashboards to surface those metrics, so that you can get some insight out of them. There's also automation. There's lots of different infrastructures communicating with each other in your typical technology stack. You want to be automating as much as you can, and therefore to implement a full automation suite across the board, you're going to need to use lots of different types of coding skills. So what I would say, widen the scope of where you may look for if you're looking for a coding job. Oops, I keep spacing that. Okay. There's also lots of other jobs in technology other than just developing code. There's infrastructure support. You might be more interested in the hardware side, implementing networks or servers for companies with more traditional data centers. Application support is where I've come from. I find that we don't develop the code, but we do run it, and so we operate that. So I find that's very interesting, because that's the job where you really need to know, have great rapport with all of the other teams as well, because when you're looking for issues and things, it's going to be something. It could be something wrong with the application, but it's probably more likely to be something that the application depends upon, whether it's the database or the network or even the hardware. Could be a database administrator, or work in information security, and surely, and that's there's lots of different types of roles in the information security space, and also very well paid as well, because they're in very much high demand. networks I've talked about. End user computing, of course, there's people, desktops and mobile phones, they need to be set up for the enterprise these days. And there's operation support as well, looking after when you've got applications operating and there's problems for the user front end, that you might come to an operation support team to help to identify any issues and help run through processes to sort out any issues there. Business relationship is I've currently, as part of my role as a service manager, I'm in business relationship. And that's about interfacing with the business, finding out what they need, reporting on the quality of service that you've been providing them, and that's a great stepping stone if you've been working in technology for a few years. And yeah, there's lots of other things. So you've got your observability, which I've discussed before, automation, orchestration of jobs, and of course you've got the business intelligence side as well. That's as a back end. And also, I'm a big fan of the service management processes, particularly the incident and problem management, change management, and config management. That's a role you might want to look into. And of course, there's also audit, usually internal audit. But you know, if you want to go that way, that's probably for a particular kind of person. So, right.
What do you mean, David?
Oh, as somebody who's really on it. So. So which one are you going to choose? Well, I would choose something that appeals to you most. That's something that you've got a passion for, is something that you're going to really engage in. You'll be keen to learn about it more, but bear in mind that it's not for life. It's what you do now is not what you're going to be doing in 10 years time, 20 years time. It's almost definitely going to change. So go with something that appeals to you. So personally for me, I'm a big fan of variety, and yeah, so but you might want to focus on one thing and be the absolute master of that. So you go, you've decided what kind of job you want to go looking for. You're going to have to apply for those jobs. So just give you a few tips on what I do when reading a few CVs. Yeah, we get a lot of applicants for jobs these days. They will be filtered at some level by the people team, the HR team. But the ones that do come through to me, there's certain things I'm looking for, and it's worth taking note of that. And certainly I'm looking for experience, but it's not necessarily experience in the particular task that role is looking for. It's I'm looking for somebody who's who's gone out of the way to do the kind of things I'm looking for in the job, and not necessarily just the technical experience. And so I'll come to that later in terms of what you can get from the ST for that. What are things I'm looking for? I'm looking for people who've shown examples of taking ownership. So it's basically taking something and being able to run with it. You know, there's it doesn't have to be ownership of a role in technology. It could be something outside of your role as well, something you do in your personal life. I'm also looking for something, an example of making something better, and that for me is it's all about a continuous improvement. So you could do your job. You could do the job as it is, could be doing the job as it is, but what I'm looking for is somebody who says, right, how can we do this better? And so if somebody can give me an example of that, then that's certainly a green light for me. I'm looking for a team player, and most of all, I'm looking for somebody that I'd like to work with. So what we call a team fit. Certainly I like somebody to be fun, but also like people who are not like me, because they give a different perspective on life. I'm currently reading, I've started reading Invisible Women, and it's an amazing book in terms of understanding the implications of the default male in and its implications for all aspects of life. And it's and so yeah, if you've got the opportunity to work with people who have a create a diverse team, then that's great. So also, yeah, so let's go right in the interview. So in the interview, I'm going to be friendly. I want to know, you know, I'm not there to get off on the wrong foot with anybody, because I'm looking for somebody I'm looking to work with in the future. So I will be friendly in the interview. So bear that in mind. Don't go into an interview expecting them to make fun of you, because that's not going to happen. I will ask technical questions, but if you don't know the answers to those questions, tell me that. Be honest about it, but do tell me how would you go about resolving that answering that technical question. Most of the time it's Stack Overflow or Google, but there's if you can show some diversity in the answer to that question, that's great. I'll encourage people to give an example of them working at their best, and it's a chance to show off. It's the kind of thing I want to see, and give the opportunity to show this kind of person, show what they can do. But I'll also ask about a time when they made a big mistake, and that's the reason for that is because I don't want to find out faults with them. I want to understand how they dealt with it. How did they learn from it, and what do they do to get to the root cause to stop that mistake happening again. I'm also looking for somebody with confidence in their own abilities. It's probably trickiest. You can't be blasé about things, but also, and don't be cocky. But I think you need to. I think it's something that I would love to have more of myself, and so it's something I want to ensure people have got working with me. So yes. So where the best tech people come from? Well, you could say computing graduates. Yes, certainly they've got a lot to offer, a lot of great technical knowledge and technical depth. But also science graduates are great. I think we've interviewed and brought on people from a science background, and I think that's great because people from science background, underground systems, particularly biological sciences, they understand systems and the interactions, complex interactions between many different places. But also, and this is a thing I wanted to get across, some of the best people that we've brought into the technology team at Camelot have come from our customer operations team. And the reason for that is they've got a really great knowledge of the business. So they've also got a very sound knowledge of the customer as well, in having to deal with many of them from time to time, all the time. And it's the nature of the role is that they're always learning about how the business is evolving, and that is brought across as well. They also have lots of experience with difficult conversations, and show a great amount of diligence in their work. So what am I saying? Is it just customer operations? No, I'm saying that anybody, the best tech people can come from anywhere. That's science graduates, customer operations, just two small examples. Don't feel that your past history is something that's going to stop your ability to get into a job in technology. It's more likely that the stuff that you've done that's non-technical will be a great asset to your role in technology. So bring it. So you get the job, making progress. I would say two great things are the things to make progress within a job are provide great service, provide great support, and know what kind of person you are. So to go through them, to provide great service. I think I'm very much a believer in what goes around comes around. So be helpful. If you can't help somebody yourself, try and find somebody who can. I think it's certainly a way forward, and you get known. People will thank you for it, and people will say, "Oh, go and speak to that person. They'll help you out, and it will raise your profile within the business." The other thing is measure, report, and improve. So this is anything you're doing. So if you're able to measure, say if you're like in a basic support role and you're running through tickets, measure the number of tickets that you're working on, and report that back to somebody, probably your manager, and then see what you can do to improve that. The other thing, doesn't need to be work that you're doing. It could be the service that you're providing to somebody. So say example, simple example again, the time that a report is created for somebody, measure when that report's created, keep measuring, keep a record of it day by day. You might go to a system to automate this, but if you might show that report is getting, over time, it's being sent out to the business a few minutes later each month or each day, and so you can identify that something's going wayward and you need to improve that. Or you might also show that actually everything's hunky-dory and it has been for the past few months, and so if anybody challenges you, you've got a record for that. Next thing is knowing what the business or the customer wants. So this is it's very easy in a job in IT to be very insular and work, do everything you need to do within the kind of confines of the technology department. But I would really encourage you to go out there, and if you're providing technology for the rest of the business, go out and speak to the other people around the business, all the other departments, and find out and speak to them and find out what they need, how do they use the technology, what kind of issues do they have, and what do they use technology for as well. You might find it's used in different ways across the business to what you're expecting, and it's a perspective that you only get by going out and have a few chats with people across the business. Next thing is following service management practices. So as I said before, incident and problem management, change management. Sometimes you might think, oh, it's a bit of a drag doing this, I'm gonna have to raise a ticket for it. And go through the process where I can just go ahead and just resolve this, or I could just make this change, nobody will know, that kind of thing. But actually, it's really important. And the thing is about those service management practices is understanding the value of them. If they're not a thing that has to be done so that you can get your ISO 20000 certification, they're actually really helpful for you. And once you realize how they can be helpful for you, it'll improve the way that you do those processes. So incident management, on an incident ticket, keep a record of what you've done so far. Don't just accept the ticket and close it off when you've made the change, fixed it or whatever. Keep a if it's going to run over several days, maybe even weeks, keep a record of the progress you've made, because then if you go on holiday, somebody can pick it up after you, or if you've come across the same instance in a few months' time, you can go back to that ticket and see what you did. It's really helpful for you. Change management as well. It's a good change ticket should be making sure that you've got everything in place to make that change successfully, and back it out if you need to. But also, come 3 months down the line, you find out that something's been going wrong without without realizing it, and it's been going on for the last 3 months. So the first thing you do, go and have a look at your change history, and if you can relate it to a config change that happened on that particular day, you've saved yourself a hell of a lot of time. So it's they're really good, and work with your change management team, because they will help you find a time and make sure that your change doesn't have an impact on the running of the technology, running the business, and work with them rather than against them. Next thing is communicate what you're doing. Let people know if you're making a change, if you're implementing something new. It's better to over communicate than under communicate. Sometimes I think in technology people can be a bit reticent to people, they don't want to know that we're making this, we'll just do it and it'll be fine. It's from, you'll get to know this from talking to the business, is that it's even small changes can have a big impact for them. So make sure that you communicate those changes out to them, and work at the next level. So I'll come to that in a bit. Actually, I think I've got a separate slide for that. Provide and great support. So be a master of one, but have a deep understanding of everything else across the whole technology that you're having. You're certainly, when you start in a role, it will be your job at a lower grade, shall we say, but a higher technical level. You're going to need to be a master. So really get to know the intricacies of the thing that you're supporting or coding or developing, but make sure you get that deep understanding of everything else, because it's whatever you do won't run in isolation. And having that understanding of everything that you that across the business will just make things a lot easier for you. Understand the infrastructure that your application works in. Identify all the interfaces. So if you've got a connection out to a bank or some other service provider or some other piece of technology internal, know all of those, know where the data goes, know where you get data from, and just understand it. The other thing is know the user journey. So for example, on National Lottery website, it's not just purchasing tickets. There's you need to log in, you need to load money into your wallet. There's the prize claim journey, and then there's the journeys that are used by the customer operations team for the admin back end, and understanding all those are key to being able to provide that great support, and stops you asking questions when issues need to be resolved. Build great relationships with other tech teams. They're there to support you, and you'll no doubt need them. So get to know what they do. Spend some time with them, have a cup of tea with them. Build great relationships. And this one important for me, be the documentation guru. Somebody once said to me, they didn't need to do any documentation because their code, great code, documents itself, is self-documenting. But it needs to be great code to be able to do that. And also, like I said before, code doesn't run in isolation. So being a documentation guru, you need to know if you set up a connection to some of the interface, where are the API keys for that stored. It's somebody wants to set up a development environment from scratch. How do they do that? Be the documentation guru. It will save you a lot of time in the future. And then when you realize that you've got to be you need to redo something because your computer's just had a load of water spilt on it, then you're going to be thankful that you documented it, your setup. Next is being a team player. For me, being a team player is somebody who helps others, but also someone who's willing to be helped. don't keep it from you, or keep everything to yourself. Don't be, when you're a master of one thing, make sure you're not the only master of that one thing. Share with the team, and also if make sure you're learning from your team as well. So it's about making sure you're not that single point of contact, single point of failure when something goes wrong. And the other thing is learn from your mistakes. One of the best advice I ever had said, it's okay to make a mistake, but never make the same mistake twice. If you want to take that to the next level, that's problem management, finding the root cause, making sure that root cause doesn't happen. But it's not just a technical thing as well. It's something, I think it's great advice for life in general, basically. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, this is a concept I've been thinking about for a while, and it's what I call spectrum of human traits. It's probably something I've picked up from various different places, but in my mind, there's for any human trait, it's a particular spectrum. So here's one example. Are you a planner? Are you really great at planning? Would you plan to make a plan? Or are you on the other end of the spectrum, just flip and do it, just in case there's any children watching. And I think at any time you tend to generally sit somewhere on that spectrum, and I'm probably someone who sits more towards the left of that spectrum. These spectrums could be anything. It could be your political leaning left to right. It could be tidy or messy, creative, not creative. Are you punctual or always late? How where you sit on that spectrum is something that's could be affected by, have you just something you've just eaten, because if you eat something too sugary, you might be along the JFDI scale of things, or you've just watched an inspiring TED talk. But generally you're going to sit somewhere generally along that line, and I think the general distribution along these spectrums is your standard distribution. Most people are going to sit somewhere along the middle, so they don't do it. Most people don't do an excessive plan. Most people just don't go and do everything without thinking ahead first. So you've got a nice standard distribution there. I would say identify where you are, because me, I'm probably tending more towards the JFDI side of the plan. So it's good to understand where that is the case, and so you can make amends and make sure you do make a plan. Another great thing is to find somebody who's on the other side of this scale and work closely with them as well, and you probably get the best out of both worlds from each other. I think it's also very, very interesting. There's a lot of talk in the media how the social media algorithms are turning this standard distribution curve from a dromedary into a back-training camel with two humps. So algorithms, but you're basically always seeing the algorithms are basically forcing you one way on the spectrum or the other. But I think I always think of all these spectrums as a bunch of lines crossing each other, and they move, and where you sit on all of those is the person, the way you can define a person in particular terms, and so identify the kind of person you are, and that can help you improve things if you think they need improving, or understanding that you can provide if you're the kind of person that just likes to get on with it, you might be able to the right person to get something that's stalled back up and moving again, as an example. Okay. So you're thinking, but I'm not doing any of that. Well, I would say just start doing it today. Start building up a body of evidence, and because there's no time like the present. So start with that, and just and keep a record of it. I think I mentioned before about measuring and recording things. If you build up that body of evidence. You can look back at it and you can provide that in the future when you needed to, say an interview. Okay, one piece of advice I was given, so but obviously haven't taken, because I've been at the same place for nearly 17 years, is it now? Is move every 4 years. So this isn't what to do in 4 different years, but it was some advice that I was given, and I thought I'd pass it on. It's when you get into a technology job, get to know the application you're supporting inside out, then concentrate on the improvements, then show how those improvements have made things better. This will be towards the end of that 4-year term, and then start looking for your next role, and that'll keep things fresh and moving forward. Okay, so wrapping that up, why volunteer with the STA? Well, I think it gives you the opportunity to try out different roles. You might have done React at Cloakland or something like that, but maybe you're more interested in product management or data science, and so STA would give you an opportunity to go looking for those kind of roles. It gives you the opportunity to develop other skills as well. For example, I'm here now doing a talk to you guys, something I definitely need a little more work on, and so I was given the opportunity and I grabbed it. So and that's it's not just the coding. Look at the other opportunities that the ST can give you. It gives you a chance to practice giving great service and great support, understand yourself a little bit better, and start building up that body of evidence for interviews and whatnot going forward. So I think I mentioned before, I was also going to say is moving every 4 years. I just want to go back to that because it's quite an interesting discussion point. Was the I think I mentioned it earlier, was the working at the next level. Now it's interesting because when I first put this on the slide a few weeks back when I prepared this, I hadn't heard of the quiet quitting movement, which is interesting because I think, does it conflict with that? No, I don't think it does. I think quiet quitting is an interesting concept. It's about making sure you only do the work that you're supposed to be doing. But if you're wanting to progress in a particular role, people aren't gonna say, right, I'm going to take him for promotion or her for promotion because they're doing a great job they're doing great at the job that they are doing. They're going to pick somebody who they know can do the role in the promoted thing. So start, if you want to do that, start doing things at that next level. So for example, you might, if you wanted to get into a more managerial role, start helping out working with budgets. Maybe do ask if you can run one-to-ones for a small part of your team, or take ownership of a supplier relationship, that kind of thing, and that can be really helpful. And then once you gather that body of evidence, then that you can do that role, and people will be more inclined to offer you that role if you're going to do it. So that's that would be my advice. So my advice would be join, make sure you make the most of the STA, and it will do a lot of good.
Oh, thank you so much, David. You covered loads of stuff there. It was great, and lots of sage advice there, guys. I did see there was a question in the chat actually around, and I'm going to not even attempt to pronounce the name properly because I will probably trip over myself. But it basically is about roles where you need sponsorship. So, have you got any advice around if you're looking for a role and you also need a work visa? Any kind of easy ways or organisations that might help find companies that would sponsor you. It's definitely a specialist question, so don't worry.
Yeah,
The answer is I don't know.
Honestly wouldn't know that, I'm afraid. So in answer to doing what I proposed earlier, it was where would you find out that kind of information? Good question. I think maybe it was something we should put out to on the general channel and see if somebody can help
the other
that.
thing is, I mean, if is it Savana, apologies if that's like horribly wrong. Why don't you drop me a note afterwards at joanna@scottishtecharmy.org. We partner with a recruiting firm called Head Resourcing as well, so they are going to be much more familiar with those kind of roles.
Yeah.
Obviously, my immediate thing would be an international company is going to be much more familiar with moving staff around than a sort of small local boutique firm. Doesn't mean they're not willing to do it, but the things are always a little bit scary once you've done it a couple of times before as well anyway. Are there any other questions? Hang on. Feel free to turn on, come off mic, have a look, ask a question.
Nice. Share.
Always nice talking to people. Go on, Joe.
David, thanks for that presentation. That was great. I just want to go back to one of the slides where you talked about like providing good service and consistently providing good service. I just wanted to know, do you have any tips maybe about how you'd maybe avoid fatigue, I guess? Because obviously not every day you come to work. Yeah. Really on the ball, I guess, you know.
Yeah. Oh, that would be, yeah. I'd love to know them myself. Just, I think having that positive attitude, being able to, I think what you do have in your favour in technology is that you've got a lot of things through your ticketing system. So if somebody, you can put something on the backlog. So if something agile processes work managed very well in that you've got people want something, they put it on the backlog in a more service management oriented approach. You can ask somebody to raise a ticket through your ticketing service and say, we'll look at this in at a certain time. But I mean, a lot of the time you get just more general support through human interactions, people turning up at your desk when people used to sit at desks, or pinging you on chat. And I think I don't get a lot of burnout from that kind of thing. I get a lot of energy in that from being able to help people. But if I'm really busy on a particular project, then I won't be able to. So I think it's just if that is the case, being honest with people and saying, I can't deal with this straight away. But if we put a ticket, I always think having a ticket rather than an email is such, you've got an ID. You've got an ID that you can go back to something. You've got something in the system. It's there and it doesn't get lost. So that would be my advice, I guess. Yeah.
An element of acknowledging it, even if you're not feeling fully up to then dealing with the whole question. There's another question about firms hiring people who are self-taught, and any insights you have or recommendations you have with that, basically. So so if you've just taught yourself with free online courses, how would most firms look on that? I guess, I mean, it's not going to be blanket, but
I think it's not that it's the fact that you've self-taught yourself is not going to be I mean, I can't speak particularly for development shops because I don't come from that environment. But as I said before, it's not the technical aspects that we're looking for. It's the how do you operate in a in very much of a human environment. I think technology is not a technical. It's not purely technical. You do technology for people, and it's how do you interact with people. So self-taught is great. I mean, I think it shows that you're basically you're committed, you've taken the time out to learn, and you've got an obvious passion for it, because otherwise you wouldn't complete all that learning if you didn't. And that's why I say, if you're, come to the STA and get those experience of those other things, if you don't have them. But people don't sit in, operate in a tiny insular vacuum on their own. You do have interactions with other people. Bring those to life in your interviews. Yeah.
I think the other thing, you are likely to get interview questions that say, tell me about a time when. So that's where maybe getting involved in some projects, volunteering, even just charities directly, might give you some tangible stuff to talk about, then not only reading about it and practicing, but actually how it works in real life. The other side of things for all of you actually is a massive part of finding roles and getting started and getting that transition is networking, meeting people, finding out who's hiring, what kind of people they're hiring. There definitely will, if you are self-taught and haven't worked in a team, going to be roles you're going to be more likely to be considered for. So, you're not going to get a senior developer role. You're not going to get to deal with AI if you only just started. People will want you to understand, right at the beginning, David, you gave a really nice bit of, everything in technology is teamwork. You will not be sat at home on a computer on your own working. That just doesn't exist. That image of hackers is a movie image. It's not real life. Tech is built with teams, it's deployed with teams, it's maintained by other people, it's directed by a client. The client is often a company with lots of people. Teamwork is a huge element of things. So, looking at communities, and it doesn't necessarily just need to be the STA, will help you understand how different people work, how it does work working in different locations. I'm sure David and I, if we had a big debate, it's easier working next to people when you're coding. It's amazing how much actually happens in conversation, not just in the code. So anything you can do to try and replicate that, the STA will give you some insights to it, but it's not the same. But ask that question of as many people as you can. It used to be, and definitely with the graduate training schemes, and that still is the case actually for some of them, is they start you where you would start in an analysis role or a support role, so that you understand who does what and how things work. You very rarely go straight into code this new bit of greenfield, really super sexy code. And if you do, you're probably in a boutique app development. But that the different companies will offer you different things as well. Any other questions? There's a load of thank yous on the chat if you've not seen them as well, David. I should probably make sure you see those as well. So
thank you for taking the time to listen to me.
Excellent. Well, lovely to see you all. Hopefully we see you all in projects. David, you used a lovely phrase, which was basically about, it was an expression of people who sort of stick their hand up and get involved. That's definitely what you need to bring to the STA. The communities, lots of volunteers. We really, really want you to get what you're looking for, but it does mean you need to step forward and kind of say, hey, I'm looking, and bug us. We're not ignoring you, we're just looking after 2,500 volunteers. Martin, a big testament of, I'm actually sort of directing people to Martin every now and then too. So feel free to ask other volunteers for stuff as well.
What I wanted to say is it's really a great organization. I'm kind of learning a lot, and this is all I wanted to say. Just like if you're struggling, just try, because I know there are job shortages. I'm looking from a perspective of someone who is looking for the job, let's say, but like the skills, there is a wide variety of skills. There's a depth in every single aspect of it. So there's a lot of things to learn, and it's just no better place than kind of volunteer and try. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. Right, I will thank you, David.